Hey there, this is Darren, founder at Denzity. Welcome to Denzity Insights, where we interview real estate experts for their expertise and opinions and help you to learn more about all things real estate. In today's episode, sit down with Ng and Rosaline Fu to talk about ESG in real estate. Patty and Rosaline are both professionals experienced in the application of ESG in the property sector, and they will share their insights as industry insiders, including experience with big clients and their outlook on what is to come. As always, you can find everything we mentioned in this episode in the show notes, including our thoughts, more about the guests, and all the tips and tricks. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button like you mean it to get our regular updates. Now, take a deep breath and buckle up for the show. Hope you enjoy.
Hey everyone.
Hi.
I'm really happy that you guys are here because as a real estate guy, it's kind of shameful to say that I only learned about ESG only a couple months ago. And then I feel that I'm not the only one. So it's nice to have you guys here. So let's start with Patty, right? It's something that I'm sure audience would want to know. What is ESG and how does it relate to real estate?
Okay, so thank you, Darren, for the question. So great question. So just to start off with, I would like to say that ESG is becoming such an important and urgent topic for every one of us, particularly as we now realize that over the years, there's only so much finite of resources that we can have from our planet Earth. And so it's down to our duty as an individual level and also to the company level to take responsibility in how we utilize them. And it's about not only just reduce or sustain ourselves, it's about also regenerating for the planet Earth. And so we have now come down to identifying these three pillars. So E, S, and G. So which stands for environment, social, and governance. For us to not only measure our company's performance against just financial performance, but also from this ESG aspect. So just to give you a bit of context, what ESG really means. So environment, it could be talking about like the emissions, water usage, waste management, so have you. And for social, it's about say diversity in the workplace, health and safety, how to provide a secured environment for people to work in. Or for governance, it's about how do we have a very well-managed structure in the company to ensure that there's policies in place to make sure that there's no unethical practices that's happening in the workplace. So those are a few different examples and kind of in a nutshell what ESG really means and how important it is. And so in terms of your next question for why it's related to why real estate is related to ESG, again, I wanted to emphasize that there's ESG and real estate actually has such an impact to our planet Earth. And just for you to take a guess, from an environmental standpoint, how many percentage of GHG or greenhouse gas emission do you think the real estate sector has emit globally?
Let me think, maybe 13%, 15%?
Yeah, you're close. Yeah. So it's around just 30%, which is a third of our total emission globally. And just to give you a bit of context, for us with COVID, that there's no, that's preventing us from traveling all over the world. The aviation industry itself, that is just stopping us from emitting 2% of the global emission.
Only 2%?
Yes.
Oh shit, it's huge.
Yeah. So that's my sharing.
That's cool. I think it's kind of interesting because to think about the bigger picture about how this emission that we created, and then 30% of the big numbers, right? And then for your role, right? I think you work with a lot of real estate developers and companies and so on. How does ESG impact real estate investing? And then why has it been such a big topic out of nowhere? Because we have never talked about ESG until really the proper past like half a year, 1 year. Would you mind sharing about your point of view on that?
That's a really great question. As Patty said, ESG is such a big topic. So when it comes to real estate, obviously, we spend our life in property all the time, like whether it's residential property, we go to work in a commercial property. And I think it's very important for real estate to try considering a lot of these factors. So if you think about the life cycle of a building, it includes the construction phase, the design planning phase, and there's also operation phase. So I'll give some examples for consideration for each phases. So for construction phase, obviously, if you procure more sustainable or lower embodied carbon construction material, your building's definitely going to be more environmentally friendly, going to last longer, more resistant to aging problems. And if you talk about the planning and design phase, if you start to look into what people are starting to be aware of, what tenants, what are they looking for? For example, are they looking for more green features in the building itself? How's the visitors like? Where would they like to chill? How they expect the premises are? I think obviously you have a better advantage as you stepping out of your comfort zone on what you've been doing and looking for something more forward thinking or as a design phase. So in the operation phase, for example, and obviously if you have more energy efficient or water efficient components within your building is going to save up a lot of money as operation costs. And also if you look into where you acquire your land or property, you think about how your neighborhood's like, what's in there, how to create synergy, how to fulfill what the neighbor or the communities are wanting. So these are all ESG considerations. So that's why a lot of the developers are actually looking at how you can have better ESG consideration, have a specific strategy on planning their portfolio development, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the usual misconception of ESG? And it's something that even I want to know. At the same time is that a lot of people always talk about green properties and ESG. Are they related or different things?
I think talking about misconceptions, I can identify two. So one would be ESG, people would be just like, oh, is it just environmental factors? Is it just about energy saving? Is it just about water consumption? I think as the ESG topic becomes bigger or followed by the COVID, the pandemic, a lot of people start to realize, oh, it's actually social aspects as well. So the misconception there is hopefully already fixed, and people start to look into a bigger picture about ESG and what's its impact. So the second misconception would be, remember, I think Patty would have already recognized, would be in the market back into many years ago when Hong Kong EX first announced the reporting requirement to the listed companies. A lot of them would be just taking a box ticking approach, I would say, just to hand in your homework, get it done, or thinking about if you consider ESG, that means it's a complete makeover to your portfolio. So we would just like to say that it's not the case. There are a lot of different approaches to maximize your ESG potential or performance. There are not only like capital investment that could change it. It could be just altering your approach on managing or operating your company. So for example, you can add some screening requirements on procuring or partnering with better contractors, subcontractors. And also there could be about how you can establish all different communication channels, since we have a lot of social media development out there. What sort of communication channels would your stakeholders prefer? How can you hear more from your stakeholders to improve your business operations? I think there are a lot of cost-effective ways, and there are expensive ways, like complete makeover of your building, green retrofit and stuff. But again, there are different priorities depending on your company's affordability or your strategy.
So Patty, a lot of people might listen to this so far and say, okay, that sounds cool, but what's sustainability? A lot of my friends are real estate guys and they think that, oh, this is a hoax or it's not that important. So in your perspective, what is some motivation when it comes to monetary driver for real estate companies and property management companies to be part of the ESG movement?
So to start off with, I would say there's 3 different areas that we can start looking into from a monetary perspective. So the first one I would like to say is does yield a better rental value. So although it does cost about 6.5% more to construct a green building, it does yield about 13 to 36% more for the rental yield. And secondly, with building that is has a higher certifications and qualified as green buildings, it would have a premium to the green assets. And then thirdly, it's the financing terms. So there's a lot of companies and banks that are initiating various initiatives, say like sustainability-linked loans or green bonds, that is motivating companies to meet a certain ESG metrics, certain targets for them to meet in order to get a better financing term for their future asset, what have you. So those are the monetary perspectives, but I would also add for the non-monetary benefits, it does build a better brand reputation for your company as you're doing you're enhancing or you are building a better product for your society and do the greater good. And second, it does build a better proposition for your brand, and your brand just becomes a lot stronger within the market, and it gives you a lot more leeway to even put a premium to your asset.
So Rosaline, a lot of developers or real estate companies probably come to you and say, hey, I don't know nothing about ESG, but I want to do something about that. What is something that you usually provide to your clients, and then what is something that you advise them to do?
So I guess a lot of them, if they have never really thought about ESG or they start to have to do some reporting, then obviously reporting guidelines would be a really good starting point for them. And after all, they usually will look for better something more than just reporting, more value adding. So what they can actually do. So they need some advisory services on initiatives and maybe some planning for them to complete their 2030 vision or 2050 vision, something like that. So I guess it's all tied up to some global initiative, for example, the UN SDGs. So a lot of the developers or companies start to want to be part of it, want to participate in it, and want to contribute to it. So that's when they look for a lot of advisory services on how they should plan this, how they should work out their priorities. They look for a lot of third-party opinions on that.
So from experience advising and consulting your clients, what is the best ESG performer? And also, right, for the viewers or people who have the reports, what's the best way to look for when you're an investor to understand if a company is doing a good job on ESG?
Now, right now, after quite some years of development, I'm sure that there will be a lot of reporting guidelines, tools, assessment tools, to help each other to evaluate each other. So I guess that would be a baseline for a lot of companies to do better job in data collection, data analysis, reporting on their approaches. But what they're looking for now is actually how to distinguish themselves from the market, how to actually have their own culture, have their own style, have their own innovative approach to do more, to be more strategic on running their businesses. So I think this would be something that there is no 100% the best performer, I would say, and every company should have their unique way of approaching the ESG considerations. Yeah, so see if Patty have anything to add.
Yeah, sure. So I personally do a lot of reporting work, and there's a few areas where we focus on in terms of what we look at. The one thing I would say would be transparency, whether the company is really transparent about not only the great work that they're doing, but the challenges that they're facing, and what kind of steps they are going to be doing or taking in order to mitigate those challenges for them. So transparency is one key thing. And second is about stakeholder engagement. So it's essentially figuring out it's a process that what we call the materiality assessment, which is engaging with their local stakeholders, not only just within the company, like their staff, their employees, senior management, but they're also their clients, and even outside, which is the partners, NGOs that they partner with, suppliers, or even government. And going through that stakeholder engagement and understanding what are the risks, what is something that is keeping up those stakeholders up at night, in order for them to really identify the key risks and key issues that everyone is facing, and then turning those and identifying those in order to turn those risks into opportunities, and how they can better leverage each other's resources in order to come up with a better solution and mitigate those sustainability issues that they identify that's of relevance to them.
This sounds like real estate has always thinking about, hey, I have this plot of land, I build something, it's a box or something, let's cut out and piece it and sell them right away. But now it sounds like it's more cohesive. It's really about being part of the community in the world and society and so on, and being responsible. So is there any companies that, in your perspective, that done a great job and have proven that they're not only helping the world, but helping on a monetary perspective?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in Hong Kong, there are so many big players and key players are well known within the sustainability industry. So one would be Swire Properties, New World, even Hong Kong Land, who has a big presence in Central. So I would say Swire, particularly because they have, as I said earlier about stakeholder engagement, they do put a huge emphasis on engaging with their local community. So they have this report called the Place Impact Report, which they recognize that they, as a real estate developer, they have a huge impact onto the place and the presence they have. And hence they have created their own strategy through first understanding what is the needs from their community first, and then create a holistic strategy to mitigate what the needs of those stakeholders are looking for. So I would say Swire is a good one. And then another one that I would say more, that's a more local base, it's called Stan Group. So they are asset owner. So what I like about them is that they really identify their key issues that's happening in Hong Kong, which is the elderly, the aging populations that we're facing. And so he sees that as a risk for everyone in the society. And he utilized his own resources, which is asset, and partner and actually acquired a elderly care company called Pine Care Group, which obviously has the expertise in how to care for elderlies. So they collaborate and then dedicated an entire building, one of their own assets, and turned that into a service apartment only for elderly people. And not only that, they also cater to their needs. So they have a whole team of trained staff with medical background or nursing background at the concierge level, so that whenever the elderly needs any care, they can just call up them and then just go up to the service apartment whenever there's need. And the way that they design each of the apartment is very catered to elderlies too. So that's something that I always look to them, and I find them very admirable to be doing something for the community. And also just to show as a proof of concept, showing how they benefit from this as well, is that just even last year, even despite COVID, there is still the occupancy rate is still at 97% for the entire year. So that goes to show that if you care and you want to contribute, and the market will receive as you're actually helping with the problem that they're facing, and you're still benefiting from that.
I see. I think there's so many things I want to ask you guys, but I think in this, place right now, I want to ask more about aspiration. How do you envision this movement will change how things are in the next 5 to 10 years and change the way you look at real estate investing?
So from my point of view, there would be two major areas I'll be looking at. One is that real estate investors or developers are nowadays tend to diversify their portfolio. They don't want to put all eggs in one basket anymore. So there are quite a few developers that used to be really heavily based in retail market or commercial sector. Nowadays, we can see they start to inquire for more businesses. So they're trying to develop business line on data center or industrial market. You can see how they try to diversify their businesses to make their portfolio more resilient to market changes or even the COVID pandemic. So the second would be, I actually start to see a lot of laws and regulations going on. Like you can see different countries are trying to implement ESG related laws. Like for example, you must declare your business investment decision. And why are you making this? Have you considered ESG? So all this sort of movement, for example, I know New Zealand, I know Europe already launched their laws and regulations, or some states in America. So since Hong Kong and the PRC already commit or pledge to carbon neutrality by 2050 and 2060 respectively, I would say this is gonna be something really big in the next 5 to 10 years. I will foresee there will be implementation on relevant environmental regulations to make environmental requirements or relevant requirements more stringent to a lot of business operations.
Yeah, so also to add, I think there's so many other things that it's up and coming. For example, with cities utilizing the donut economics. So I'll share more information with you in the show notes. But then from my perspective, I think with COVID happening for the last year and a half or so, it's been impacting us from so many different levels. And particularly, I want to shift our focus more on the social side. So as everyone is facing lockdown, facing, having to social distance, working from home for some of these people have to work from home for an entire year. There's a lot of mental well-being issues that are emerging. And that's why I think from a real estate sector point of view, it would be important to not only just focus so much on the environment aspect, attaining the LEED certification, green certification, turning into a green building, energy efficiency, what have you, but focusing more on the social aspect. So how do we turn these issues, the challenges that the society is facing in terms of the mental well-being, and turn that into an opportunity for your businesses? So could it be identifying some innovative ways to design your workspace, to design the spatial of the entire building that can also enhance the well-being for your office tenants? So I think the trend would then be the environment is still going to be here. It's probably going to be the benchmark of the norm of all real estate developers. But the new thing would be about how to attack the social issues that's happening right now.
So you guys mentioned a lot of great things here, and I'm really happy because even for me, when I've been around to talk to all different experts around the field, and they all feel that the real estate industry should take more responsibility on all sorts, not only about the monetary, it's about environmental, social. So having you guys and even my next episode with some prop tech, experts and leaders, they share more about how we can all be part of it in this movement. So before we go, what's the best way for the audience to reach out to you to discuss more or learn more about the subject? Let's start with Patty.
I'll be happy to chat with anyone who's interested in the subject. It's my passion, personally. So, feel free to share my LinkedIn, my email on the show notes, so everyone can reach out to me anytime.
Yeah, so I guess my service line will be a little bit different. I'm focusing on conducting some market studies and advise what would be some best or feasible solution or investment opportunities that my clients can look into. So also with some ESG sharing, of course, like some ESG aspects, insights that we can share throughout the studies. So I guess if anyone's interested in what ESG factors do do they have to consider in their different sectors of investments, they can always reach out me via LinkedIn to discuss further.
I'll put everything in the show notes. So thanks again for everyone, and then let's do round 2 very soon.
Okay.
Sweet.
Thanks for watching. You know, majority of you don't stick around this far. So we're flattered and truly appreciate your attention. To return the favor, let us tell you our thought on this episode. What it means to be ESG is a large and complex discussion. In the case of real estate, that's good news. The more elements of sustainability there are, the more pathways for ESG-friendly solutions and applications. At this moment, the E, or environment of ESG, is the most emphasized. However, the social and governmental factors are still very important. Real estate companies are increasingly become aware that there are more ways to measure success than the financials. And incorporating all elements of the ESG initiatives equally are the best way. With that said, there is a lot of work to be done in both public and private sectors to incentivize sustainable initiatives. While green buildings are already giving better yields and premiums, government and business group benefits to ESG-focused firms will simultaneously drive growth and create a better world. Stay tuned for our second episode of ESG, where we sit down with 2 local PropTech leaders who discuss the implications for ESG in the startup world and how it is remolding the real estate sector together. We have a more detailed version of our thoughts in the show note. Beside that, you can find more about the guests and all the tips and tricks we have mentioned in the show note too. Well, what do you think? Let us know in the comments section. Fun fact, do you know that more than 85% of you have subscribed to this show yet? Subscribe now to keep getting good stuff from us. Thanks for watching. What do you think of this episode? Please let us know in the comment below, and be sure to hit the subscribe button to keep in touch with us for upcoming videos. But before we go, I want to give a big shout out to Patina Design Lab. They're the one who help us in making our brand, art direction, as well as these videos. They are a strategic design consultancy firm that help businesses with a wide range of design services, from industrial design, branding, graphic design, art direction, content creation, and many more. They are a very talented bunch, and I urge you to check out their website for their work. That's all for today, and see you next time. Cheers.